So you want to learn how to draw feet, you dirty little boy. It's a lot simpler than hands. You just need to get to know the main big forms, and then screw the details. You don't need any details for feet. I'm going to explain basically just the main building blocks of feet, and then you can slowly start to add in more intricate details if you want to draw more intricate feet. But like no one, like I don't draw feet. I was never asked to draw very anatomically correct feet. So as long as you get like this main section, these main ideas in, you don't need these little tiny details in here and all of these stuffs. There's three main parts to the feet. So you want to make sure that you have the cylinder of the leg that's dropping down. And then from then on, you can kind of start to separate the feet into its main sections. So you have the heel section back here, which is this big block that's more or less rigid in line with the leg. There's going to be examples where it's not, but you can just think of it like this. This is its own little block of mass, very thick, very chunky. And then you have this middle part here, which is going to be like the bulk of the form, the bulk of the shape of the feet right here. And then you have the toes, the toe section, which is small. For feet, it's really important to understand the footprint because feet are on the ground plane. They're on like, you need to know your perspective. They're on the grid. They have the horizon line, all of that fun stuff. They're on a ground plane. So perspective is really important. And it's really important to lock in the footprint of the feet, which is this bottom part right here. The footprint of the feet has a gesture to it. This is why gesture is so important. This strong bend for the outside of the foot is the outside edge. This is wrong, by the way. I just noticed this is wrong. And then this here would be the inside. From then on, you would have the big toe on this side, which I had it wrong in this drawing. And then you would have small toes like this. You want to get good at imagining this footprint shape, this phone shape kind of thing, so that you can easily place it in perspective and then build the feet up this way or build the feet down this way. So for example, we start off with a cylinder. We can bring in a section here, which is called the medial malleolus, but I'll go over that later. You can start bringing in the other sections of the foot. Then you can bring in the footprint. It's very, very perspective heavy, so I hope you've learned enough perspective to get to this level. Now this is kind of off perspective, but you get the idea. You basically want to master this shape. Now what else is important about the feet before we start drawing some feet? With that footprint shape comes an arch. So feet have arches. If we want to start off with a cylinder, there is this arch right here for the top of the foot. Now, what's really important for this is that we know that if we're looking at a foot from the front, the foot has like this diagonal slant going up. This. It has this slant. This is where the big toe would be. And here's the smaller toes. It has this slant, this arch for the foot. You can see it in this example here. You have a gesture going out this way. And then you have this arch cross like that. The slant is more aligned with the big toe. So when you have the big toe, you have the slant coming up. And then you have the rest of the toes like this, dropping down. So the foot is basically split like this. Keep in mind the gesture of everything. Everything has a slant to it, right? It's not even. The foot isn't like a rectangle being dropped down. The foot has dimensions. It has gesture to it. How many times can I say gesture, right? It has this. You have two bumps on your ankles. The inside one is higher than the outside one. The inside one is called the medial malleolus. This is the malleolus bones. Medial is on the inside, lateral is on the outside of the body. So inside, outside. The bone that's on your thumb toe, your big toe, is going to be higher up than the one on the outside, where your pinky toe is. Now, it's also important to know that I'll use this picture here. For this, because there's this arch right here. Because we have this arch, the bottom part here has an indent, has a gap, right? That's what this whole shape is for, right here. This part here would be flush with the ground. This part would be flush with the ground. This part would be flush with the ground. Here, it's brought up because this is arched up. So if we see it, I don't even know how to draw it in a way that like showcases it, but I guess this is the best way. Here would be touching the earth. Here would be touching the earth, and here would be touching the earth. Here would be a little gap that's like, I mean, if you're stepping on the ground, it'll touch the earth because, you know, it's squishy, but generally you can think of it as like raised up, not part of it. Okay, so now let's get into some drawings of feet. Now, general ideas when drawing the feet is that in most drawings, in most cases, feet do not need to be detailed. What's most important is to get the main shapes and the main 3D like masses, 3D forms down, right? Rather than getting each little detail. So in a lot of cases, feet like this is messier, but this could be too detailed. You can easily simplify feet to just be the leg dropping down. You have the heel, you have the main part here, and then you can have a little section for the toes, like that. And then that's good enough. This is like acceptable in so many cases, right? But you're here to learn how to draw the feet. This is how you can basically elevate this up to like the next level. And then you can add in anatomy, which I won't go over because anatomy is, you can learn that on your own. Do some independent study. The ideas for these feet is very gestural heavy. Feet has very strong gesture because feet has a lot of range of motion than people might realize. Like people think of hands, right? They have all of these different motions and stuff like that. And there is a lot of gesture to them, but feet has, you know, just that amount and even stronger gesture because the shapes are stronger. So let's look at the gestures of these feet. You have a big gesture coming down here, big gesture coming down here, and then it's really digging in deep onto the floor. Same thing with these. You have a strong gesture like this, gesture dropping down, like that. Same thing with these. You have a very big gesture coming down like this, and then you have another big gesture coming down like this. And then for the toes too, toes, just separate toes from the big toe from all of the little toes, like this. Right? This is good enough. If you have a drawing, let's put down a feet. You have your big toe separated, and then you can have a big enough gap. The gap can be pretty big to help sell the separation, and then that could be the rest of your foot. This gives off the impression well enough that it is a feet. So I think that just getting these main ideas in, you're fine. Then all you have to do now is just draw a lot of feet. So let's draw some feet. Cylinder, gesture for the leg. Let's bring down the heel. Next, we're separating into parts so that it's easier to manage. Break it down into your main shapes. I'm gonna bring out the gesture of this middle section of the foot. These would be called the metatarsals. Have your, you know, tarsals, metatarsals, phalanges, that kind of thing. Same thing with the legs, or same thing with the hands. After that, you have the ball of the foot. If it's touching the ground, like if this is the ground plane, you want to make sure that you have perspective into it so that you sell structure of the foot. And then you have the toes. I'm going to bring out the big toe first, and then all of the other toes can be a lot more simple, dropping out. And remember that there is a bend to the toes. So from the front view, main toe, small toes, it fans out, right? Like your hand fans out. It's the same idea for these guys. And then because of perspective, right? Perspective is really important with the toes. The toes don't really like, you know, move out like this, you know, gang signs. The toes mainly are flush, flat down. So that's why you can just kind of like group them all together and then do like some lines or something, right? These are some ugly toes, but you get the idea. Then you have the big toe separated out. have the main gesture, and this is pretty good for the foot already. You don't need to have so many details. The main idea for drawing feet is kiss, guys. Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid. This is also, portions are a little off, but it's okay. It looks long. It's fine. I'm just gonna make the heel bigger. Keep it simple, and it'll sell the illusion of feet better. For this part here, remember the big toe has this slant, so if I were to do my contour lines, it like drops down pretty significantly. This here, the malleolus. We're gonna put a second foot, put it in perspective. I'm gonna start off with the toes just so that it all matches out like this, you know? You have this like perspective. Starting big and rough, right? This is how you should always be drawing most of the time. I have the malleolus bone right here. The second malleolus in here. This one should be higher up, so I'm gonna move it higher up. And this one should be lower. So this is where I can bring in this other idea. So the bottom part of the foot is put out. So this would be the top part of the foot, right? And then you have the leg dropping up. The heel and everything, you have a pad here around your foot. You have this padding to help cushion the weight distribution, or to help cushion, you know, the force when you're stepping down, when you're walking. So you kind of want to have a little bit of a bulge coming out, right? It has this kind of an angle. So for here, I want to have this arch that we always have, like this. You have going up and then gradually sharp, and then gradual, sharp, then gradual, coming down like this. And then you can have very slightly up here and getting thicker as we go down, because this is where all the force is pushing this pad out, coming down like this. So then you have a little bump that, because this is where this pad comes in. Separate the little toes from the big toe, of something like that, right? You can see that I'm not really being so precise. You don't have to be, because it's feet. A little bit of the heel, coming down like this. Do a little bit of shading to help capture the form better. Right here is a little bit messy. You can't really see the form, so I'm going to erase this slightly. I definitely do not recommend erasing when studying, because it's always better to just do another drawing from the beginning and not be so precious about your drawings. But alas, it is what it is. And then we got 2 feet like this. So to recap, feet are actually pretty simple. You can dig deeper with the anatomy, but for most of the parts, you don't really see the anatomy. A lot of it is structural form. You want to get really good structural form understanding. So for this idea here, you have a cylinder, which is the leg, attaching to this hinge joint so that it allows your foot to go up and down like this. You have the main mass of the foot, and then you have the toes, and then you have the heel coming down from the backside. Foot can just be simplified into these main parts. You have leg section, heel section, middle main section, and then toe section. Each of the parts has its own little unique shape. What are the main ones? The main shapes for here would be this ridge up here. We want to make sure that if the toe is here, the ridge has this kind of an increase, right? It's a sharp side up the toe, and then gradually going down the rest of the foot like this, right? Here, the next thing to also keep in mind is the padding. On the bottom of the foot, you have this padding to help keep track of, or to help, you know, cushion the force of your heavy ass footsteps. So you can have that part locked in. The next section would be, the next part that you want to keep in mind is the angles and the gestures. You have gesture in everything. You have this main gesture line up here, and then you have, you know, a smaller one here for the ball of the foot, big toe side. You have a gesture line here for the malleolus bone, so remember your ankle bones. The inside is higher than the outside. I always forget, but you know, you have feet, I assume, so you can always double check with your own feet. If you don't have feet, you can always look on Google before they change the algorithms and make everything AI. And then the last part would be understand the footprint. There's an indent over here where the big toe side is, and then you have this big arch over here, like this. So understanding this, being able to draw this and drawing in perspective is really, really important. And then after you have those ideas locked in your head, I would practice by doing a lot of very gestural kind of foot ideas and just really trying to capture the range of motion that your feet have.